People of Earth, we come in peace.
Welcome to this neighborhood, neighbor.
I am the Martian ambassador.
Des Moines and all of Central Iowa, welcome to Mac's World Live. Mac's World is your world. Every day we talk about the issues and topics that matter most to you. And as always, it's your voice we want to hear in Mac's World. So join the conversation by calling 515-244-0077. And now, here's the host of Mac's World Live, J. Michael McCoy.
All right, 7 minutes after 4 o'clock, 8th day of February in the Lord's year 2016. I'm J. Well, that's a lot of numbers up front, isn't it? Well, that's the way I got to do it. I got to tell you the time, 4:07. And I guess I don't have to tell you the date, but I date our shows. Now, there's a good chance you're going to hear this show with Heidi on at another time, another date, another month, maybe another year. Because when we're gone on vacation or holidays or whatever, I've got two choices. I either try to bring up the best shows to replay to you, or I let Frank do it alone.
That's right.
And since Frank does it alone, we never get a best of, so I've got to have the best shows up there. And Frank's a part of the best shows.
That's right.
But Frank's no Johnny Carson.
But I'm the best Ed McMahon you've ever had.
Bob, I think Bob beats you best. He's best.
All
But see,
right.
I'm partial to Bob.
That's right.
Bob and I have been together actually, when you think about it, you and I have known each other longer because you used to call in on 98.3. But Bob's been my co-host for over 6 years now. And you're just lucky he lets you sit there because he tells me you're gone, Frank. Boom, you're out of here. Soon as I hope you pay Bob well.
I do.
All right. So that's why we give you the dates and everything. So you know this is recorded on Monday, the 8th day of February in the Lord's year 2016. Tomorrow's the big New Hampshire primaries, and we'll see what happens back then. Today I want to introduce you to just a neat lady. And was that the first time we met each other? Was at the church?
Yeah.
So as you probably know, I was blessed enough to come alongside two groups of people that needed each other. One was the Gort's house, and the other was Harvest Bible Chapel. And one day after Betty told me that they were probably going to stop functioning as any type of business at the Gort's house, I had known that Ryan Jorgensen, your pastor from Harvest, was looking for a church. And I literally just went over there one day. We had lunch and I introduced him. And the next thing I knew, boom, you guys are buying the church and you're having services there. And so I had to go there for the first day. I'm a first guy. You know, when the first of something's going to happen, I want to be there. That's just who I am. And so I was there that first day when you guys had services. And I'm standing outside. Fall? No, probably summer.
No, fall.
Fall? Okay.
Yep. We just got it, I think, in October.
And I was standing outside, just talking to people, and here comes Heidi. And Heidi was wonderful, big, bright blue eyes, blue or gray?
Blue. Hazel.
Okay. Big, bright hazel eyes and a wonderful smile and very intelligent in the way she speaks. And she's saying nice things about the show, and then she told me how she disagreed with me on something that I had said, which you have no idea how much I cherish. Unless Frank says it. But otherwise, I love it when people tell me I can do better. I was in the restaurant business for years here in town. I always told people, thanks for telling me my cheeseburgers are good, but I need for you to tell me when they're not. And you disagreed with something I had said on the air, and you presented it very well. And I actually think I agree with you. I think you were right.
Oh, that's important.
Yeah. The topic was, the conversation one day was, if ISIS came up to me and said, do you follow Jesus Christ? My thought was, well, now God knows in my heart I do. So if I lie and say I don't, then I save my life and I'm able to go on and help other people. And you totally disagreed with that.
Yeah, I think it's a trust in Jesus. If his word says not to deny him, and that if we do, he will deny us before God, then I think we have to trust that our death will bring him more glory than our life, and just obey him.
She sounds like Luke Tim, doesn't she?
Well, she's right.
Everybody's right except Mac. Bob's right. Frank's right. Mike's right. Ryan's right. Heidi's right. Chris is right.
Well, I think at the time there was a Facebook post going around, and it was showing somebody kneeling and a gun to their head, and I think it was a prop picture, but it was the idea, what would you do if you had a gun to your head? Would you proclaim Christ or deny him?
And I think for any of us at this radio station, it would be hard to believe for anybody if we denied him, because we talk about it publicly all the time on the radio station, how we love him.
And we are the Truth Network, so we have to
tell the truth.
Yeah, and we have to follow the truth, which is God's word, and that's what he says. So,
yeah. No, I remember that day outside that church thinking, I've been convicted. She's exactly right. That's what Jesus tells me to do. I should do it. Although Luke Tim was on the station last Friday. I don't know if you heard that show, but I argued with him because anyway, there it is. There it is. All right. So Heidi Boomsma, Boomsma, born and raised.
Well, I grew up in Racine, Wisconsin until I was, I loved it. And then I moved to Pella when I was in 6th grade.
So about 10 years old?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And
are you Dutch?
Yep.
Okay.
Half of me is. My dad was
top half or bottom half, or is it right or left?
Kind of, the right
or back
side.
or front.
Yeah, right side is. My dad was a Christian school teacher at Pella Christian.
Okay.
So we moved to Pella for my dad to do what he dreamed of, and he wanted to be an industrial arts teacher for a Christian high school.
Okay.
And of course, then I went to Christian school my whole childhood. And my parents really believed in that. And I'm so thankful because of all the abuse that I have gone through. All the things I was taught, all the chapels, I was well fed spiritually by my parents at home and by the school. And so that kept me strong. Even when my brain was a little messed up with the abuse, God's word kept coming through and keeping me strong.
So did you ever sweep the streets of Pella in your wooden shoes during Tulip Festival?
Yeah, did the whole Dutch dancing and all of that stuff. It's a fun culture.
What did your mom do? She a stay-at-home mom?
Pretty much. She did until about junior high, and then she went back to school and she became a special ed teacher.
Oh, okay.
She wanted to be in the same type of work as my father so that vacations were the same and things like that.
Now, your mom and dad still with us?
Yep, they are.
Down in
They live in Grinnell right now, Iowa, and hopefully.
That's right. I met your dad at Testify.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yep.
And you have one sister.
Yep, an older sister. She works at Drake.
And what's her first name?
Wendy.
Wendy, who's walking down the streets of the.
Yeah.
And you had said during your testimony that Wendy was not nice to you growing up.
No, I hate this part of my testimony. Growing.
I can change it. Wendy was the greatest sister in the world, wasn't she?
Yeah, she is now. The unfortunate part of my testimony is that growing up in this wonderful Christian home, behind the scenes, my mother was a first-time Christian, so her family was not saved.
Okay.
And her father was sexually abusing me, my sister, quite a few members of the family.
Okay.
Quite a few. He was definitely a pedophile, and it was very terrifying. It was so terrifying that I had blocked it out until I started having marriage problems because of an abusive marriage, and that started bringing up the memories. So my sister, to compensate, took out a lot of her anger on me, which I think part of the reason I took it was because I knew she was in pain, and I think we both, she had to protect me from my grandfather. And
physically.
Well, she would take a lot of the abuse, and then he would actually put
I've heard that.
Yeah, he would put me in a closet, and then he would go molest her. And she always kind of felt like I was safe when I was in that closet. But then when we would get outside of that situation, then she had a lot of anger that she would take out of me, because it's not the responsibility of a 3 or 4 year old to protect her sister from the scary monster.
Heidi
so
Boomsma
that's why it kind of
is my guest today. She's sharing her testimony. Boomsma. Now, I don't want you to get graphic, but when you say your grandfather sexually abused you, are we talking inappropriate touching, or are we talking intercourse?
Intercourse.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And you were how old?
The earliest between my sister and I, our memories, the earliest I can remember remembering houses, things like that. I know it was kind of during the potty training stages, and I was 1.5 when I was potty trained by asking my mother. And there was a house where I know some sexual abuse happened, and when they sold this house, I was 4, and I can remember a couple of years in that house. So as early as I can remember, probably diapers, and
Now,
my sister as well.
Is your grandfather still alive?
No, part of what brought up the memories was his death. It became
Okay.
safer to remember once he was gone.
Now, we're going to talk about this as we go along, but I said earlier when I was telling people you were coming on, you've come through this so wonderfully, so in love with God, and you don't seem angry. How is that a Jesus thing?
I think it is. I think, I think that I've always gone after healing. My children will say too, Mom, you always made us deal with things, and sometimes it was really annoying. But you made us deal with things. I'm the type of person that if Uncle Henry is standing on the table with the lampshade on his head, I was the kid that called him out. Or I was the kid that the emperor has no clothes.
Yeah.
I was the kid that said, hey, why doesn't the emperor have any clothes on? So I have always tended to call a spade a spade.
Okay.
So that's part of it, I think.
Heidi Boomsma is my guest today. She's giving her testimony. Born and raised in Racine, until she was 10 years old, lived in Racine, Wisconsin. Go Badgers! And then at age 10, she moved to Pella, where her father was a teacher at Pella Christian, and her mother was a stay-at-home mom until later on she became a teacher also. We're going to continue to let Heidi tell her story. If you know somebody who's gone through sexual or emotional abuse, call them up, tell them to listen. God's got something for you to hear today, live on The Truth.
Credit cards are like grandkids. They love you, sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can return the grandkids, but you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We'll help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids?
Yeah!
If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
Hi, my name is David Burrier, your Hope Coach. I host a live weekly talk show called I've Been There every Thursday afternoon at 5:30, right here on webcast1live.com, and on my weekly radio program Saturday mornings at 10 on Truth Network 99.3 FM. I interview common everyday people who have survived incredible life challenges and who testify to God's faithfulness in the midst of their storms. So join me as we bring a message of hope and encouragement. Everybody needs hope. I know, because I've been there.
Rock and Prevention is celebrating 25 years of creating a caring community. We want to say thank you to the tens of thousands of Rock High School mentors that have carried our message of health, love, and encouragement to over 1.5 million children, teachers, and parents. Our mentors teach children methods and skills to prevent bullying and drug use. Thank you to all the school administrators, teachers, and counselors for their opportunity to serve you. Rock on, fair citizens. Rock on. This is Pat McManus for Rock and Prevention, the Richard O. Jacobson Foundation, and this station.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast 1 Live. "21 after 4 o'clock, 4:21. How are you? Heidi Boomsma is my guest today. She's telling her testimony. If you know somebody who's been through sexual abuse, emotional abuse, tough subject, but Heidi's very comfortable talking about her experience and how God weaved his way all through her life. So you might ask him to tune in. Now, we will post this show at MacMcCoy, MacMcKoy.com. MAC, Mary Apple Cat, McCoy, MCKOY.com, and you'd click on shows, and about 20 to 30 minutes after the show's over, so about 5:30, that show will appear on the upper right hand, and it'll be the last show, or the first show, I guess, they're posted, and it'll have Heidi's name on there. And you can also throw that on Facebook if you want to. You can do whatever you want with it. It's free. All right. Bob is monitoring the chat line at webcast1live.com. He's also got the Service Legends Truth Talk text line at 515-809-0993, where you can put some messages up there or ask Heidi some questions or whatever you might like. All right. So sexual abuse from your grandfather started at about 2 or 3 years old. You and your sister, Wendy. How much older was she than you?
She's only a year and a half older. Okay. I also have a younger brother, 3 years younger.
Oh, okay. All right. Did Grandpa mess with him?
We don't really know that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so, did you ever go to your mom and say something goofy's handling with Grandpa? I don't understand what's happening. And what?
Yeah. Yeah, I do have a memory of I was sitting in the back seat, and it was probably about 3 or 4 years old, and I went to lean up to the front seat of the car, and they just picked us up from Grandma and Grandpa's, and I wanted to tell them of, I don't remember exactly what it was, but of something that seemed bizarre to me or strange, or Grandpa did this or Grandpa did that, and they both kind of poo-pooed it away. And then I sat back in the back seat thinking, oh yeah, that's what I thought. He didn't mean anything. And then I looked at my sister, and she was like, we're not supposed to say anything. And then I was like, oh, so it was confusing, and I never tried to tell again. I think it just got more confusing. And when things get so confusing and traumatizing, your brain just, as a child, you have to block it out because you can't process it as a 3 or 4 year old. You just can't.
So as you became a young teenage girl in Pella, so all right, but hold on. So Grandpa was in Racine, or Grandpa was around Pella?
He was in Minnesota, but because we had so much vacation time because of school teachers, we spent a lot of time with relatives, and we didn't have a lot of income, so most of our vacations were with family, so we actually saw them quite often.
Okay. And when you're 10, 11, and 12 and you visit Grandpa during the summer, is this happening again?
Yes, or, I can remember one time in our house at Christmas time, everybody was going to go somewhere, and I didn't really want to go, and Gramps said, oh, I'll stay home with Heidi. Didn't think anything about it, and then, it proceeded into,
And when you thought, I don't want to go, and Grandpa said, I'll stay here, that didn't hit you as a 10, 12, 14-year-old?
I can remember probably college, first married, seeing the Sally Jesse Raphael show, and a gal on there talking about amnesia and blocking things out from her childhood about sexual abuse. And I can remember thinking, well, how could you not remember something so traumatic? How does somebody do that? And not knowing that I was sexually abused.
Wow.
It's almost like I could remember everything about my childhood except for those events. Those events were so locked up and separate from my other part of the childhood that until I was old enough and something brought up, a trigger caused it to come up. Most women do not remember till their 40s.
Wow.
Yes. So mine is a rare situation. So I actually feel very blessed that some of the trauma that happened in my marriage caused it to bring it up so that I could deal with it while my children were still little.
All right, so let's back up. When were you married? What age?
I met my husband when I was 15, and then I wasn't married until 5 years later, so when I was 20.
All right, you met him when you were 15. And you married him when you were 20. Now, how was he abusive?
Mostly emotionally. There was the first 15 years of our relationship. There was physical abuse, but I didn't think of it as physical because it was shoving, pushing. I mean, if you say something you're not supposed to and you get slapped, you don't say it again. And if you say something and you get slapped or demeaned or whatever, there was something in me, I don't know that it was just from the sexual abuse, but there was something in me that took responsibility for that. If I got slapped, I felt ashamed. So I would have never told anybody.
All right, now I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Right.
But what I heard you just say was that you thought you deserved it.
Yeah. Well, afterwards, not before. You know, when I was saying something, I didn't think I did anything wrong.
Right. And then he'd slap you.
Right.
And you'd think, I just said something wrong. I deserve to be slapped.
Yeah.
I don't want to put words in your mouth.
No. It's
okay.
Typical. You feel responsible. And I don't know if because I was sexually abused that I just went into that role or if I did it because that's what happens. I mean, I don't not have the before. So I don't know if somebody wasn't sexually abused, I was preconditioned to thinking it was my fault.
Your father didn't treat your mother this way.
No. Nope.
So where in your mind did you think this was acceptable treatment? I mean, you didn't see it on TV back in those days. Or movies, did you?
Well, my grandpa slapped me. My I hate saying this part. The relationship I had with my sister was very parallel.
Okay.
To it.
All right. And you guys aren't that way at all now.
No, she's wonderful, and I hate that part of my testimony.
That's okay. That's all right. I don't need you to go down that road at all. All right. Heidi Boomsma, Boomsma. How old are you now?
I'm 52.
52.
I'm 52.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how long have you been out of that marriage?
About 8 months. But I've been separated for almost 3 years.
All right,
for 2.5.
You basically went for 30 years.
In the marriage. 35, 30. Yeah, altogether, I think it was like, because, they continue to abuse you even after you get separated, like financially, going through lawyers. There was it took a long time to get divorced because of, just the manipulation through the lawyers and all of that kind of stuff.
Now, and you have 2 kids.
I have 4.
Oh, I'm sorry, 4.
And then I have a stepdaughter from an affair he had during the marriage.
Oh, that's right. I want to hear this story. Tell me about this story.
Well, so we were hardly married. And what had happened, part of the abuse was that he would what they do is they punish you. And so he would use women to punish me. That was my punishment. And it vice versa for the other women that he would have a relationship with. So we had only been married a few years when he started an affair with one of his employees. And we went through I went through about 2 years of every 3 months having a tragedy happened. And at the end of it, this girl got pregnant, which put him in kind of a difficult situation. And what happened, and I think I talked about this the other day, was that I took him back. We were separated for a while, but I think I told you about trauma bonding.
Yes.
And what that is it happens when someone uses fear, sexual feelings, excitement to entrap someone else. It's a result of continuing cycles of abuse where alternating reward and mistreatment form a bond that is not easy to break. And what he would do is I had already had trauma bonding through the dating years because he would use this, cheat on me, and then I would take him back. Then I would become the hero. Then he would want the other girl, so then I would become the villain. Then he would want me back. I would become the hero. Then he would cheat on me, and I would become the villain.
Wow.
And so now here we are, and he wants me back. Obviously, I've got 2 little kids. I'm terrified of him and his family. They used a lot of bullying techniques.
Okay.
So I'm terrified of this powerful, wealthy family. And they had threatened to take away my children. They said, he was saying, and this is a very common thing for an abuser to say, is that I was crazy. He used my sexual abuse against me.
He knew about what your grandfather had done?
Well, at this point, I guess we didn't know that, but later he would use that against me, I guess.
How old were you when your grandpa died? Because that's a key.
It was in the middle of all of this, so I was probably 23.
Okay.
I had just had my second child, but I was pregnant while he was having the affair.
All right, go ahead.
And then I had the child, and then a few months later, his girlfriend turns up pregnant. So we end up getting back together within a year. And a lot of it was just simply, I did not know it at the time, but I simply took him back because then he wasn't mad at me anymore. And I was terrified of him because he would destroy relationships. He would spread lies and slander. And I just was not a strong enough person to stand up against it.
Heidi Boomsma is my guest today, telling her story about sexual and emotional abuse here in central Iowa. Frank?
Well, you talk about the family being wealthy. Did you feel your economic status, your education level, did you feel somehow trapped in the relationship because you couldn't make it on your own?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Did he make you feel like you'd never make it on your own?
He didn't say things. He wasn't so much as a verbal abuser as much as a psychological abuser. So he wouldn't threaten that kind of things, but he was a very much a control freak. And so, that's probably one of the things we had the most fights about was I just wanted to know financial information, and he would not give it to me. Another pattern that abusers have is lying. They lie a lot. And so after about 15 years of trying to get information about our finances, just so I had some control in my life, just so I knew what was going on.
Yeah.
And he would continually give me false information. He constantly threatened me for 30 years that we were going bankrupt and we were actually millionaires, but it was a regular thing to somehow control me financially. And so after about 15 years of trying to find out just normal information, did we get a bonus? Did we, after about that, I quit asking because what good is false information? I never would get the truth, and it would turn into a fight that would escalate into violence.
Did you ever work outside the home?
Not really.
Okay.
When we were first married,
that was a form of control too for the abuser.
Right. When we were first married, I cleaned houses and babysat because that was the only way to have my own income. After I slowly gained strength power within the marriage in some areas, because after he got the girl pregnant, he really lost a lot of his power. And then all of a sudden, he was making me to look like the bad guy. And then all of a sudden, I was the hero in taking him back. And I was this wonderful, forgiving person. And so all of a sudden, his family is eating crow. And now they're appreciating me because they don't want their grandchildren, somewhere else, and they want the family intact. And I just saved him from this terrible situation. And so I definitely did not take him back because of love.
All right, Heidi Boomsma is my guest today. Isn't her testimony wonderful? I mean, she's just so bold. She's so filled with God's grace that she feels she can share this with the whole purpose to help you. Because maybe something she says rings true in your life or someone in your life. That's the tough stuff about this, but God's right in the middle of it. We're coming back live. It's Restoring Hope on a Monday, live on The Truth.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast 1 Live.
I'm Brian Leach, owner of Service Legends, and my position is Chief Talent Officer.
I'm Nicholas Wonderscheid.
I am Bernie Hobbs.
And I'm the Service Manager.
Marketing Director and Client Relations Manager.
Everything that we do is about ensuring that we exceed your expectations.
Our clients are important to us. 100% satisfaction.
We're not just focused on heating and cooling. That's the easiest part of our job, actually, is fixing furnaces and air conditioners.
Everyone that we come in touch with, we want to improve lives.
Bottom line is, we've got our installation guarantees, 25% energy savings guarantee, comfort guarantee, temperature selection guarantee, property protection guarantee.
100% satisfaction guaranteed. Fixed rate or it's free.
All of those guarantees are backed up with a 100% money-back guarantee to hold ourselves accountable to making sure that you get what you're after.
Just fixing the problem today. If they have another problem 5 days down the road, it's still fixed rate or it's free.
We use what's called straightforward pricing. Our technicians are going to give you an exact to-the-penny price on what it's going to take before they move forward with any repair. That way you know what to expect.
It's the same price every day.
No surprises.
If you get off work at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you come home, you realize that, oh, my furnace is broken. Now you need to call somebody out that night. You shouldn't have to pay more for that.
We're guaranteeing service 24/7.
We run afternoons, evenings, nights, weekends. We're staffed to work that.
Phone rings at 3 in the morning. You'll get one of our representatives answering the phone every time.
We're not sending you out to Timbuktu in some call center. It's our Service Legend team members, our mission control team.
I'll take a call anytime.
And then they answer the phones the same way during the day as they do at night.
It's a great day at your service company. How can we make you smile?
That's the only way to provide true 24-hour service.
When you're able to let somebody actually live in their home safely when they weren't able to do that before, where they don't have to stay up at night and worry about, is the heat going to come back on? Are we going to freeze the pipes? Is the baby in the room next door going to be sick because they got too cold? When you're able to help somebody overcome challenges like that, that's impacting a life. That makes a difference. I get goosebumps thinking about it.
I love the team. I love the people that I work with.
We have fun, but we work hard.
I call them my ambassadors of legendary service. If you could just envision what that is, that's who we're sending to your home.
They literally will call in, pick up the phone and call and say, hey, I want to talk to your manager. And I get on the phone, they're like, that technician that was at my house was the greatest technician ever. That's cool to me.
We want to brighten people's days.
Every person that we have going into the house has gone through an extensive background check.
Drug testing, we have a very thorough interview process that 1 out of 140 people make it through.
If we promise you something, that's what you're going to get, no matter what.
We're here when you need us to protect the safety and comfort of your family.
If you're not happy, we're going to make it right.
If we're willing to put 100% money-back guarantee on what we do, what type of work do you think we do?
Give us a call. We're there for you 24/7, 365 days a year.
Enough said.
"22 minutes before 5 o'clock, 5 o'clock, Hank the Bible Answer Man. You know the number, 1-888-ASK-HANK, and you're going to say, well, I'll call when he's on the air. I'll call. Call like 5:15 on the way home. Nope, 16 phone lines. They're already almost full, and those will be the calls that he takes during the day. So it's a national, international, around the world radio, terrestrial radio, as well as internet, satellite radio, 131 on satellite radio. So anyway, if you want to get in, you might want to call. Now, you've been on Hank. Were you able to call? Did I just make a liar out of me?
Yes.
Okay.
Because I think I got in about an hour into the show.
Okay. Well, there's Frank there, because he told you. All right. My guest today is Heidi Boomsma, and she is telling the story of her abuse. First of all, it started out sexually from her grandfather at age 2. That's just unbelievable. And he died when you were how old? 23, you said.
When I had my son in 1987, so I was probably 23.
Okay. And when he died, tell me what happened.
Well, that's actually an interesting story.
Heidi, your whole life is interesting, but go ahead and tell me how his death impacted you.
Well, what I like about his story is, first of all, a lot of times when the abuser dies, it does cause the woman to begin remembering, because then
it's safe.
Yeah, exactly. It's safe, and you're not afraid of him anymore. But what was really interesting is I did not know when he died that I was sexually abused, but I had written him letters thinking I want my grandfather saved. Like I said, my mother was the only one saved in the family. And so we all were reaching out to all the family members to get saved. And really by the time, most of them did receive Christ eventually. It took years. But my grandfather was on his deathbed and he had cancer and all the family had gone back to see him. And my mom and dad had stayed behind. My mom and dad are very much servant type people, and they're very much helpers. And they had stayed back with my grandma to help her, get the bed ready, hospice, all that stuff. And while my grandma and my mom were out doing some shopping, getting some things, my father stayed back to work on some chores that my grandpa hadn't gotten done. And suddenly my grandpa calls my dad over and says, Norm, come here. And my dad goes over and goes, what is it, Jim? And he goes, I just don't know what's going on. He goes, but this happened twice in the hospital and I just don't know what's happening to me. But he said, I just had this man come to me with this bright light and he's holding out his hands to me and he goes, I think it's Jesus. And he goes, I don't know what he wants. And then my dad did what all of us had tried to do, was tell him that, he, salvation. And my grandpa would always respond with, I'm just too bad of a man. And I've had, I've done too many bad things. And, he would start getting angry. And so you'd just kind of leave it alone. Well, then my dad said to him, well, Jim, that's the point. That we all have done bad things. And he explained the gospel message. And my grandpa finally got it. And then my dad said that, and after this, my dad gathered us all at home when he came back and said, I want to tell you what happened while I was at Grandpa's. And my grandpa did receive Christ. And 2 months later, he died from his cancer. And they found him next to his bed, kneeling, like he was in prayer. And that's how he died. So I believe that he received Christ. And what it did for me was showed me the length that Jesus will go to answer our prayers for our loved ones. And it gave me, and it also helped me heal a lot once I did remember the sexual abuse, because I felt like there's a lot of anger at the abuser. And I didn't have a lot of that because I believed he was up in heaven. One of the problems is these abusers, along with my ex-husband, are in great denial. They will not take responsibility for the abuse.
So you and your grandfather never discussed this?
No.
No. Okay.
I didn't fully remember. I remember some weird things when I was pregnant towards the end with my son and daughter, where he did some strange things I couldn't understand. What he was doing was making advances at me, and I didn't know what was going on because now I'm older and a little more alert and things. But I knew that my grandfather was in heaven, and I knew that he knew what he had done, and that if he was with Jesus, he was pulling for my healing as well. And so that helped. Your
own grandfather, the man who sexually abused you, you believe was telling Jesus to heal my granddaughter, my victim.
Well, I believe if he was up in heaven, he got everything, and that I believed that he was, for me. I mean, what could he do about it except for... That was the envisioning I had. I don't know what really happens. Well,
it makes sense. Biblically, it makes sense.
Yeah. So, and what a lot of women have trouble with is that their abuser will not take responsibility. And when they don't, it's just, you put it on yourself. And that's what's soul killing, is that you feel like you were the one that seduced them.
You said soul killing, not so killing. Soul, as in your soul. Killing your soul.
That's what abuse does.
And so by you knowing, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but by you knowing that your grandfather was in heaven, that helped heal your soul.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did that open up your eyes to the relationship that you and your husband were having?
In what way?
That you now recognize that he was also an abuser?
Well, the 9 months that we were separated or whatever it was when the girl got pregnant and we did start divorce proceedings, I had gone to the hospital in Pella where somebody had told my mother, it sounds like Heidi's in an abusive relationship. And so I had gone, they had some classes being held at the Pella hospital. So I went and took some classes on abuse. And it was definitely, he fit the
abuse
very easily.
Now you've written many poems. Would you share one of those with us now? We've literally got about 2 minutes before break. Can you share one of them with me?
Okay. I can share The Rose.
Yeah, I love that one.
Okay. Of all of the flowers God made that man knows, the most beautiful of all is the flower, the rose. Its fragrance so sweet and luscious to smell, it gives off aroma, though one petal may fall. It's soft to the touch and gentle and fragile, the colors so gorgeous its splendor to fill. All of God's garden with grace and such beauty, its blossoms are rich and stems are so sturdy. But the rose has some thorns hiding from sight, in case of rough handling be its great plight. God gave it protection from the ones it gives pleasure, in case its beauty one just doesn't measure. For a rose can be damaged, broken, or crushed, its petals stripped, thrown in the dust, the beauty all gone that once was adored, and all that remains are the stems and the thorns. Of all of God's great creatures he placed on this land, the gentlest, gorgeous, and of course the most grand was the woman he created, especially for man. Her beauty to cherish was what he had planned. She's soft to the touch, her heart is so gentle, she's gorgeous to look at, her beauty to fill all of our homes with warmth and with love, tenderness and mercy that comes from above. She's strong and she's sturdy, but has a few thorns, and if you're not gentle, she'll show you her horns. For still she is fragile and the weaker of two, and easily crushed if there's no love from you. For she can be damaged to the point of no repair, the warmth stripped away, left in disrepair. Harshness sets in, the beauty all gone, a wall of protection, a heart that is bound. The rose is now dead, and what should we care? The winter set in, there's a chill in the air. There's no way to bring it to life once again. It's crushed, it's dead, it's over, amen. But I know the one who brings back to life all that is gone, dead, or in strife. He brought his son Jesus from the grips of the grave, ascended him to heaven for a world to save. This resurrection power that did this great feat can make a crushed rose blossom at peak. Once a small, fragile, broken bud, blossom and explode with the fragrance of love. What is this power? It's simple. It's love. It motivated a father to send his son from above. For love covers a multitude of sins, be they theirs or be they them. And that same power resides in us to bring back to life roses that are crushed. So go find a crushed rose and love it to life, and hopefully the one you pick is your wife.
Heidi Boomsma. She's my guest. Her story continues next, live on The Truth.
Credit cards are like grandkids. They love you, sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can return the grandkids, but you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We'll help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids?
Yeah! If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
Hi, my name is David Burrier, your Hope Coach. I host a live weekly talk show called I've Been There every Thursday afternoon at 5:30, right here on webcast1live.com, and on my weekly radio program Saturday mornings at 10 on Truth Network 99.3 FM. I interview common everyday people who have survived incredible life challenges and who testify to God's faithfulness in the midst of their storms. So join me as we bring a message of hope and encouragement. Everybody needs hope. I know, because I've been there.
Rock and Prevention is celebrating 25 years of creating a caring community. We want to say thank you to the tens of thousands of Rock High School mentors that have carried our message of health, love, and encouragement to over 1.5 million children, teachers, and parents. Our mentors teach children methods and skills to prevent bullying and drug use. Thank you to all the school administrators, teachers, and counselors for their opportunity to serve you. Rock on, fair citizens, rock on! This is Pat McManus for Rock and Prevention, the Richard O. Jacobson Foundation, and this station.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast 1 Live.
10 minutes before the top of the hour, Hank the Bible Answer Man coming in at 10 o'clock, coming in at 5 o'clock. 1-888-ASK-HANK. You may hear Frank's voice on there. Frank's a common caller. Do you ever agree with him, or do you only call when you disagree with him?
In interest of disclosure, I've talked to Hank one time.
Oh, only once?
Yes. I've talked to Dr. Michael Brown about 3 occasions.
And that's because you always disagree with him.
No, actually, Michael Brown and I think, agree more than what I actually thought we did.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. My guest today is Heidi Boomsma, and she has spent, 45 years in sexual, emotional, and domestic abuse?
Most of my life. I've been free for 2 years, and the first year, I was in euphoria. Not having someone control me was just, I was in grieving over the losses, but I was in euphoria. Everybody that met me in Des Moines was like, "You're so happy. How can you be going through this?"
Yeah.
But I literally, being free of control was just liberating.
Now, you are going through, can we talk about this?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
You're going through a trauma psychoanalysis. Is that fair to say?
I have.
Therapy?
Yeah, I have severe PTSD.
All right.
And I am doing EMDR therapy.
What does EMDR stand for?
It is eye movement.
Desensitization
and reprocessing.
Did you look that up, or did you know that?
Yeah.
Oh, you looked it up.
Right. I've heard of it. But
You've heard of it before? Okay.
Right.
And tell me about EMDR, because I want my listeners to know this is the real thing.
Yeah.
This is not some mystic, goofy, woo. This is the real banana.
Yeah. I have done a lot of talk therapy. I've had Jesus all over me, heal me. I've had a lot of different types. I've had deliverance. I've had all kinds of different things, and that's why I'm still here today. But EMDR is something that they have found that with like Vietnam vets, you notice that when they come back, they're not the same.
Right, they're
not. And they kind of the rest of their life, they're really not so great because trauma gets in your brain, and what happens is these traumatic events deaden areas in your brain.
Yeah.
And what EMDR does is refires it again, because they found that our brains can light back up and they can come back to life.
Yeah, and let's remember, and I have to admit, I've had EMDR. It was amazing.
Yeah.
It's just crazy what comes out.
Uh-huh.
And then you go back and you confirm with people who you can trust, and you're like, oh, where was that? Where was that for 40 years? Where was that for 35 years?
Yeah.
And what my therapist told me was that your brain is an incredibly complex / simple biological organ. And it's complex because of all the different things that it does, but simply because it can regenerate itself.
Yeah, and that it's an organ.
Yeah.
And what's so amazing about this therapy is that to me, it's just like amazing that wouldn't God do something like that to make it so simple as eye movement? They've always said that we all need REM sleep or we'll go insane.
Yeah.
And REM sleep is the part of your sleep that you go so deep into sleep that you have the eye movements are going back and forth. And so it's very healthy to have that deep REM sleep. And what this does, it kind of like recreates that while you're awake and while you're kind of stimulating your trauma.
Yeah, this is not hypnotism.
No.
This is not a watch going back and forth. I can't explain to you, but it's about a 24-inch yardstick, only it's standing on its side rather than flat, and there are green lights that go from right to left to right to left to right to left, and your job is to keep your head still and follow that. And when it's done, the therapist will ask certain questions within the curriculum, and the answers will be there. Mm-hmm. It's just crazy.
Well, and I first started with a therapist that had been a Christian therapist in Ames that had been doing therapy for 37 years and kind of specialized in trauma and childhood divorce. And he actually just used his fingers. He just held 2 fingers up in front of my eyes and said, watch my fingers, and just would go back and forth. So and that worked fine too. In fact, at one point when he was doing it and I was reprocessing some of the damage from my marriage, I felt a pop in my brain and then like a swoosh feeling. And I said, wait a minute. I said, do you feel this in your brain? And he was like, well, I don't. But he said people will feel something sometimes happen in the body parts where trauma happened. And that was an area where my husband had pulled me into a door and I got a herniated disc in my neck and a scar above my eye. And after that popping sensation, my herniated disc started healing.
Well, and I back Heidi up 100%. I you know, we've had a lot of people come on this radio show over the years and tell their story. And sometimes it sounds a little far-fetched, but you give them the benefit of the doubt, and you think, well, if it worked for them. If Heidi's nuts about this stuff, then I'm double nuts, because it worked for me. My wife and I were going through some wonderful therapy to heal a marriage, because we wanted it to be better than ever, not just hang on for the end of life. My wife and I have been together a little over 30 years, and we wanted our life to get better as a couple. And so we went to some therapy, and I had some traumas that I didn't recognize. And so the therapist immediately sent me to an EMDR person, and I thought, this is goofy. Mm-hmm. Just hold a watch in front of me and you're getting sleepy. But it works because it goes along with how God created our minds to heal.
Yep.
So, and I've got a great guy. It sounds like you have a great woman.
Yeah.
Well, our time is up. And I so love you. I so appreciate you coming on. You did a wonderful job. What piece of advice do you have for someone who's been listening to this program and they're touching their nose and pointing at you going, oh my gosh, this is me?
Wow.
Who do they turn to? Who can they trust?
Well, I wish that they could turn to the church more, but we don't understand this very well. And that's one of the reasons I'm trying to write a book, because I don't want to hold anything against anybody that's hurt me. I just know the healing power of Jesus Christ can help us, but you can't give if you don't have the right diagnosis, you can't apply the right medicine.
Yeah.
And we don't have the right diagnosis in the church, and so we can't apply the right medicine. So that's kind of a load. I wish I could turn us to the church, but
there are some churches, including the one you go to,
right? Harvest Bible
Chapel with Ryan Jorgensen, who lift this type of thing up and say, hey, bring it here. Jesus is here to heal everything, not just what's kosher to talk about.
Right. They have helped me in my journey. I've told everybody that they are refamiling me. They're committed. It's an amazing church. But so
thanks for coming in.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You're wonderful.
Thank you.
I appreciate you so much. There it is. Stories are just amazing how Jesus can heal us. But they gotta chip some stuff off. The whole part of sanctification is getting rid of some of those character defects. And a lot of us carry character defects that aren't our fault, but they're ours. And you got to do something with them. Got to give them to Jesus. All right. Remember, tonight, forgive somebody that you've been holding a resentment against, because as you forgive, you shall be forgiven. I'll see you in church.